Okay, we are live.
Great, thank you very much. Good afternoon and welcome to the April 27th, 2022 City of Asheville Multimodal Transportation Commission meeting. My name is Dennis Wenzel and I'm the chair of this group. Our meetings continue to be held virtually, but there are many ways for interested parties to participate in this gathering. The City of Asheville's engagement hub, which includes a variety of links and phone numbers, can be found on the Multimodal Transportation Commission page of the City of Asheville website. Visiting this page is the best way to take part in our virtual meetings. Staff, members, and guests, please remember to keep your microphones muted at all times when you're not speaking so we can minimize feedback and other background noises. I'd like to now introduce our commission members. When I call your name, please introduce yourself and let us know what interest you represent. Randy Warren?
Yeah, this is Randy Warren, and I'm also on the Bike Ped Task Force.
Hey, Randy. Kenny Armstrong.
Hi, this is Kenny Armstrong. I am also on the City of Asheville's Greenway Committee.
Hey, Kenny. Pat Katz. Pat, come on. John Balsoni.
I'm John Balsoni, and I also serve on the Transit Committee.
Hey, John. Maggie Ullman.
Hey y'all, Maggie Ullman here, and I'm also part of the Bike Ped Task Force.
Hey, Maggie. Bill Loftus. Leanne Joyner.
Hi, Leanna Joyner. I represent Greenways to this committee.
Hey, Leanna. Joe Archibald.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Archibald. I am the Planning and Zoning Commission Liaison to the Multimodal Transit Commission.
Hey, Joe. Elizabeth Lycus Worley will be joining us soon as our new NAC liaison. She couldn't make it this week, but we look forward to her participation in the future meetings. And Kim Rooney.
Good afternoon. Glad to be here with y'all today.
Hey, Kim. Welcome. All right. Our first order of business is to review and approve today's agenda. Could I get a motion to approve?
I make that motion, Leanna.
Thank you, Leanna. And got a second?
Yeah, I'll second. This is Kenny.
Hey, Kenny, thank you. Any comments or questions on today's agenda? All right. Without comment, we'll do a roll call. Randy Warren.
Randy says aye.
Kenny Armstrong.
Yep, this is Kenny. Aye.
John Balsoni. John. Yeah, we'll come back. Maggie Ullman.
Aye.
Leanna.
Aye.
Excellent. I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. The next item is to review and approve our minutes from what are we at there? The March 23rd meeting, excuse me. Can I get a motion to approve?
This is Randy. I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, Randy. And could I get a second? I think that was Maggie. Any comments or questions on our meeting minutes, the video from March 23rd? All right, without comments or questions, we'll do a roll call again. Randy?
Aye.
Kenny?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maggie?
Aye.
Leanna?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion approves. All right, moving on. We have no public comment, so we're going to move on to new business. Our first order of new business is the consideration of Colin Kinton, application for the member to become a member of the Transit Committee. Who's taking this? Jessica, do you have any info on this? Yep, we can't hear you.
Sorry.
Hello.
Hi, we have an application from Mr. Colin Kinton. He applied to be on the Transit Committee, and the Transit Committee met last week, reviewed his application, and made a motion at their meeting to recommend to the multimodal that he be approved and added to the Transit Committee.
Excellent. It's clear that when you read through his application, he is an active user of transit and other multimodal processes throughout the city. So it'd be a great addition. Can I get a motion to approve?
I will make a motion.
Thanks, John. And second?
Yep.
This is Randy. I'll second.
Yeah, alrighty. I got Kenny. Perfect. And then any comments or questions?
This is Randy again. I just want to say Colin is going to be, he would be an excellent addition to any of our committees, or he's an outstanding first contributor to many things that we do already, and I fully support his application.
Excellent. Let's do a quick roll call vote. Randy?
Sorry, I vote aye.
Thank you. Kenny?
I as well.
John?
Aye.
Maggie?
Aye.
Leanna?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. Welcome, Colin. The second item is the I-26 commitment letter for the betterment and its aesthetics. Jessica?
No, Dennis, this is Ken Putnam. I'll take this one.
Great. Thanks, Ken.
Sorry about that. We didn't tell you ahead of time. I apologize.
Oh, no problem.
So on this item, you have the actual staff report, but I'm just going to kind of introduce it so that we can give time to the aesthetics committee members to make a presentation to you, and then we'll be available for questions and hopefully answers. But the goal of this is we need your support in moving this forward to City Council for action, because the DOT needs a commitment letter on the first project. So with that, I want to introduce Ted Figuera. He is the chair of the Aesthetics Committee, and also on the meeting is Ken Dirks, and he's a member. So I think we've got the right people to answer any questions you may have. So Ted, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Welcome, and thanks everybody for allowing us to make this presentation. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen at this point, and as soon as I can get the mechanics working here, there we go. Okay, and can everybody see that?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, Ted.
Okay, great. Okay, again, thanks for inviting us to make this presentation. A little bit of background. The I-26 connector project is a $1.3 billion project. It's the largest public works project in Western North Carolina that will be seen in our lifetimes. So, and it runs through the heart of Asheville. It's incredibly important. It will change, in many ways, it will change the character of the city, and the object of the Aesthetic Committee is to try to make this as the best change possible. For funding and contracting purposes, the project is divided into 4 sections. Let me get back to this slide. Okay, so Section A runs from the I-40, I-26 interchange to just south of Haywood Road. And sections B and D run from Haywood Road south to the Woodfin town line and includes improvements to Riverside Drive. And Section C is the I-40, I-26 interchange and parts of I-40. So that is the scope of the project. Section A is a traditional design bid build contract with Ncdot doing the design. A construction contract is scheduled to be signed in February 2024, and actual construction should begin shortly thereafter. Sections B and D are a design build contract with the contractor doing final design. And this contract is scheduled to be signed in October of 2023. The contractor will then begin design work on the project. Section C is not scheduled to begin until June of 2029. Because Ncdot is completing the design for Section A first, commitments from the city on aesthetic improvements are needed soon in order to be incorporated into the project design. Okay, this presentation focuses on Section A. And besides the interstate corridor itself, Section A has 4 components: the State Street Underpass, the Amboy Road Underpass and roundabouts, the Brevard Road Bridge, and the Bear Creek Road Bridge. The city has already appropriated $2 million for widening of sidewalks and MUPs that Ncdot will build as part of the project. Based on current cost estimates, almost $260,000 of this appropriation remains uncommitted, though inflation could reduce this amount. The city will spend about $309,000 of this appropriation on betterments that are located in Section A. And the rest of the commitment will go to sections, primarily to sections B and D. The I-26 Aesthetics Committee was created in 2018 by the City Council to advise the city and Ncdot on ways to improve the project through aesthetic treatments. We have worked closely with a number of interested parties, including Ncdot and their consultant AECOM. Ncdot has incorporated many of the aesthetic committee's suggestions into the project design at no cost to the city. Items that it considers to be beyond a standard treatment, however, will have to be paid for by the city or by other funds that the city may capture, such as from the county and from the Tourism Development Authority. In order to incorporate the recommended aesthetic treatments for Section A into the final design, Ncdot needs the city to commit to fund these projects, and this commitment needs to be made by June the 1st. This is the design for the recommended design for the State Street Underpass. Ncdot has incorporated the committee's suggested design for the State Street Underpass, but will not pay for the recommended pedestrian lighting under the bridge. And this pedestrian lighting is needed for bicyclist and pedestrian safety going under the bridge, particularly at night. Ncdot also incorporated the committee's design for the Amboy Road Underpass. The committee is recommending that the 2 roundabouts be on either side be heavily landscaped. This is to be paid for with project funds, and that the truck apron be stamped and colored concrete, and that is a city cost. The committee also recommends that wherever possible, medians, islands, and splitters be landscaped rather than concrete, and this also would be paid for with project funds. When landscaping is not possible, the committee recommends a stamped and colored concrete treatment, and that would be a city cost. For the Brevard Road Bridge, the committee recommends decorative lighting to enhance the bridge and improve pedestrian and bicyclist safety. The city would pay for the conduit and junction boxes and then lease the fixtures from Duke Energy, as the city does now with its other streetlights. The committee also recommends that medians, islands, and splitters be landscaped, but where this is not possible, they would remain plain concrete as the sidewalks will be. No enhancements are recommended for the Bear Creek Road Bridge, but it would still be an attractive bridge, similar to what you see with the Brevard Road Bridge, but without these street lights. Along the interstate, the committee recommends that standard light poles be painted dark green, and that would be a city cost. The committee and the city's Greenway committee recommend decorative lighting be placed along the greenways that Ncdot will build as part of the project. In Section A, the Greenway runs between Brevard Road and Amboy Road, connecting Hominy Creek and Carrier Park. The city pays for the conduit and junction boxes and then leases the fixtures from Duke Energy. We've conceived 3 levels or buckets of funding. The first, Ncdot pays all of the costs. The second are costs to be paid by the city for aesthetic treatments that the committee feels are critical to blending the I-26 connector project with the character of the city, thus enhancing the experience for citizens and tourists alike. The third bucket are additional items for which the committee also recommends the city commit to fund. These are all the cost estimates that you see here, and I'm going to try to move that there, okay? The cost estimates that you see here are current cost estimates, but actual costs may rise with inflation before the contract is bid. The actual cost for Section A will be based on what the bid actually comes in at. But these are best estimates provided by Ncdot and their consultant AECOM. The first bucket contains a number of aesthetic treatments that have been incorporated by Ncdot into the project costs. And you can see here we've got a number of items added to the project that will significantly improve the aesthetic look of the I-26 connector. The second budget would cost the city around $114,000, plus another $16,000 in annual lease payments to Duke, and another $17,000 in landscape maintenance costs. The third bucket adds about $222,000 for the enhanced roundabout truck aprons. These costs do not need to be paid for some time and do not require a budget amendment for this year's budget. Nevertheless, the city needs to commit to pay these costs in the future. The city would commit to pay the $337,200 for aesthetic treatments by February of 2030, with no interest on that amount accruing until February of 2027. The city would begin paying Duke Energy after construction is completed in 5 years or possibly longer. The city would begin maintaining landscape 3 years after installation because the landscape contractor is responsible until then, and that occurs after construction is complete. So we are asking the Multimodal Commission to make a positive recommendation to commit to completely fund the recommended aesthetic treatments for Section A. That's the $337,204. Ncdot needs to receive this commitment again by June the 1st, so timely action is needed. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen. And any questions?
Thanks, Ted. Let's get some questions from the group. While we're waiting for questions. Yes,
Okay.
Randy?
Well, I got a question about the TDA money because I can know that the TDA money would, well, the Greenway improvements qualify for TDA money. And so it doesn't sound like that's designated now. It doesn't have to be in the city, but that's money. We're saying that the city can apply for that money in the future to be able to be part of that requirement of the $300,000.
Exactly. The city will, once it commits to fund, will have essentially 6 years to line up the actual funding. And many of the aesthetic treatment improvements that that are being recommended directly enhance the tourist experience of Asheville also. In fact, we believe that without these aesthetic treatments, the tourist experience will be substantially degraded because of this project. It's a very large project. It needs to be ameliorated with proper aesthetics, and most of our, we're asking for a relatively small amount for Section A. Most of the big ask funding is going to be in Section B, predominantly the improvements to the Bowen Bridge and also to the Haywood Road Bridge and also along Patton Avenue downtown that we're asking. And these are all highly traveled tourist areas. Also, Amboy Road is a gateway to Carrier Park and the River Arts District. So the TDA has some interest should have some interest in making that gateway as pleasing as possible. So we are hopeful that the city will be able to be successful in commandeering some of that TDA money to help the city fund these commitments. But meanwhile, for Section A, as I said, there's a substantial amount of the cost would hopefully be able to be paid for with money that the city has already appropriated for the project, but hopefully is not going to be used unless inflation eats it up for what are being called the city betterments, the sort of, the widening of the infrastructure, MUPs and sidewalks, et cetera. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that.
Joe?
I just wanted to thank you, Ted, and everybody else on the aesthetics committee. I've definitely, read or at least skim read all the reports that have been showing up over the last several years, in our packets. And it sounds like you guys have done a great job. I mean, we've got a major highway going through town, and like you said, we need to make sure it looks appropriate, and the aesthetics of it are something that we want to look at for 50 years down the road. So, like I said, I just wanted to thank you and everybody else on that commission for all the work that you guys have done.
Well, thank you very much. And one thing that I will say is that Ncdot has been incredibly cooperative in this endeavor in trying to make this project as conform as much as possible to the character of the city. They have listened to our suggestions. They've listened to our suggestions with respect to much of the redesign of the project that we have suggested. For instance, making the Haywood Road interchange tighter than originally proposed. They're working on that. They made some significant improvements with the with the Patton Avenue interchanges downtown, which have very positive ramifications for the project's impact on Riverside Drive. I'm sorry, Riverside Cemetery. And so, yeah, I also want to compliment Ncdot and their consultant AECom on the good work that they have done.
Yeah, it really seems like it's all coming together. Ken, should I just understand, at the end of your document, you provided us with the suggested motion. Does that meet what you're going to need to move forward today?
Yes, it does. Yes, that's correct, Dennis.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Kenny. I just want to reiterate what Joe said about the aesthetics committee in general. You folks have done a really important job, and it comes down to not just aesthetics. I mean, pedestrian lighting under a bridge is not aesthetics to me. That's safety and a whole bunch of other things. So thank you for all the work you've done. I appreciate also having annual maintenance costs in there, because that's important too. You know, you can't just throw money at it and then neglect it forever. So I appreciate that. If we're making a motion as a recommendation to City Council, do we need to somehow have a caveat for inflationary costs if this project ends up getting delayed, or if the bids come back a lot higher than anticipated and we're only allocating a set dollar amount? Should it not be a dollar amount? Should it be a percentage of the total somehow?
Yeah, Kenny, I think that's a good point. In Ken's document, he kind of gave us, it doesn't really tie us to, I guess it ties us to this motion, but in general, it's expressing support for the action. And you're right, it's a little bit tough, but I think it's because we're projecting so far down the road, it might be tough, and it may come back. But I think if this next motion could kind of get through at least bucket A, and then we can kind of, if we have to, go back in the future. Ken, do you have something to add here?
Yes, I think I can clarify that. And Kenneth, that was a very good question. What we're needing today, of course, is just the commitment. The DOT just needs a commitment from the city so they can go ahead with the necessary planning. What will happen, and this will happen probably about a year from now, there will be a formal agreement between the Ncdot and the city that council will have to approve. And in that agreement, that lays out all the parameters. So we're showing you what we think the costs are today and that sort of thing. But when that agreement is finalized and the city agrees to it and the DOT agrees to it, that's where it'll spell out the inflation part and all that. And basically what they've done in the past is they'll have an estimated cost, and then they'll have the caveat that says once the project is finished, they will then know what the real cost is, and they would have the ability to invoice us for the remaining amount of money we haven't paid in, or send us a refund if it happens to be less. Does that help?
Yeah, that answers my question. Dennis, if there's no further questions, I'm happy to forward.
Oh, please. That'd be great. Can you hear me, Kenny? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I was just waiting to make sure there wasn't.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? No. Is there a motion?
Yeah. I move that we recommend City Council adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign a funding letter of commitment to Ncdot regarding the city betterments and aesthetics treatments for project I-2513AC.
Thank you. And can I get a second?
Second.
I will second.
I got a second from Bill. All right, we'll do a quick roll call. Ready?
Aye.
Kenny?
Aye.
John? Maggie?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Leanna?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ted. That was outstanding. We look forward to it. We've seen a lot of this move over the years, so it's great to see it coming into fruition, and hopefully we'll be riding our bikes through those tunnels soon.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next item, over to my agenda here. Okay, next item is a resolution of support for Ncdot project to improve Charlotte Street I-40 pedestrian safety.
Yes, and Dennis, that's me as well. And just so you'll know, I think I got the next 3 items, so.
Alrighty, thank you.
Okay, and this project, there's a project listed in the STIP program to make pedestrian improvements at the I-240 Charlotte Street interchange. We're talking about both sides of it, so both intersections. And the scope of work is to include pedestrian signals, crosswalks, and then a right turn lane along the eastbound off-ramp. Because right now, traffic will tend to back up onto I-240 in that direction in the afternoons. The project is totally funded right now at $1.4 million, but they need additional funds in the amount of $400,000 to be able to deliver this project as scoped. And they want to use a special funding pot called High Impact Low Cost. And that's all state funds, but they want to use that for the additional funds. And in their own rules, any project that uses that pot of money and the actual project exceeds the total cost of $250,000, they need a resolution of support from the local government. In this case, that would be the city of Asheville. And so there is no cost to the city for this project at all. And that's what we're recommending is that you as a group endorse this idea and send it to council for their consideration to support this project by passing a resolution. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Ken, what's the catch? You said no funding to the city, so why should we say no to this?
Well, yeah, this is really just a formality, to be fair with you, on that. But yeah, the DOT is totally funding the project. They're designing the project. They will build the project.
Joe?
Ken, can you go into a little bit more clarity on this right turn lane on the eastbound ramp? I'm looking at the Google map, and are we talking about a right turn lane on 240?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's on the ramp itself. It's on the ramp itself.
Okay, because it looks like there's already kind of a right turn lane, but I'm guessing they're just widening the ramp. Like as it gets closer to 240, it's kind of one lane, and they're talking about widening it the whole ramp, correct?
Yeah, all the way up to the signal where Charlotte Street comes in. And if you ever use that direction of travel, what happens today is cars will get onto the paved shoulder part to come on up to the intersection. And so they're kind of squeezing, they're kind of making it a default turn lane anyhow, and the DOT just wants to make sure they have enough storage capacity to keep the cars in the right positions that they need to be.
Okay, that makes sense. I just, wanted to clarify that a little bit.
Sure, no,
Thanks.
that's a very good question.
Any other comments? Without further comment, could I get a motion to approve?
This is Leanna. I'll make the motion to approve.
Thanks, Leanna. Can I get a second?
Randy, I'll second.
Thanks, Randy. All right, and we'll do a quick roll call. Randy Warren?
Aye.
Kenny?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maggie?
Aye.
Thank you. Bill?
Aye.
Leanna?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. All right. Ken's next item. Get over there. Sorry. This is for the resolution to support the Ncdot project to construct sidewalk on Riceville Road.
Right, and I'm really excited about this project because again, this pedestrian improvements that are much needed. But there's an existing project in the current State Transportation Improvement Program. It's identified as U5837, and unfortunately, and it was to address bicycle and pedestrian needs along this corridor, and it had an estimated cost of $1.9 million, but unfortunately, it has found itself being delayed beyond the construction of fiscal year 2029. So it really means the project's dead, so to speak. So the DOT, the local division office, they have applied for a grant, in the total amount of $825,000 to go ahead and try to make some improvements, which would include sidewalks, ADA compliant curb ramps, pedestrian signals, and crosswalks right there at the intersection of Tunnel Road and Riceville Road. And the sidewalk, one of the sidewalk pieces on the it would be on the south side of Riceville Road going up. It'd be on the VA hospital side. It will go all the way from the intersection where the existing bus stop is and go up to the furthest parking lot access point for the VA hospital. So there'll be folks that'll be able to come back and forth on a sidewalk to get down to the bus stop. And in this case, since it's a grant that they have applied for, they need a letter of support from the city that we agree with this project. And so that's the action that we're asking, very similar to the action in the previous one. And with that, I'll be glad to try to answer any questions. And in your packet of information, there is a colored map that shows these improvements and everything.
All right, any comments or questions? All right, this seems like everyone's thumbs up here. Can I get any motion? I believe there's a suggested motion in the document as well, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I'll move. This is Kenny.
Thank you, Kenny. Can I get a second? Oops, sorry, please. Yeah, if you could read it, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. I move that we recommend to City Council to adopt a resolution supporting Ncdot in funding, designing, and constructing pedestrian improvements along a section of SR 2002, otherwise known as Riceville Road.
Excellent. And can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. And do any other comments, questions? Okay, do a quick roll call. Get over to that, please. Randy?
Aye.
Kenny?
Aye.
John? Maggie?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Leanna?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. The motion carries. The next item is a consideration proposed right-of-way closure for, am I missing something here? Hold on. No, this is right. Okay. Consideration for the proposed right-of-way closure adjacent
Dennis,
yes.
you missed one. There's a Ncdot maintenance agreement for Meadow Road.
I beg your pardon. Yes.
No
Okay.
problem.
The next one is Ncdot agreement for Meadow Road. I knew you had a third one in here. Ken?
Okay, thank you very much. And this one is too quick. This one is dealing with one of those maintenance agreements that I was sharing with you, where the DOT and the city put an agreement together. Last year, the DOT saw a need was identified to them that a portion of Middle Road, some of the pavement was rattling off between the bridge that goes over the railroad tracks near Victoria Road, all the way up to Amboy Road. So the DOT went in and resurfaced that section, and at the same time, they went ahead and made it wide enough to potentially have bike lanes on the shoulders. And so what this is an agreement between the city and the DOT that specifies that the city will be the one mainly responsible to sweep those bike lanes when it's needed. And so that's what we are recommending that you endorse and send to council for action, so that the city manager will be able to sign that agreement.
Great. Thank you. Comments, questions?
Yeah, this is Randy. Okay. So this also pertains to the possibility of having the bike lanes on Merriman too. I was reading carefully the complete streets agreements and the maintenance agreements and everything I could find about maintaining Ncdot approval projects that have improved bicycle pedestrian access. And I can't see anything in those documents that requires the local municipality to take over maintenance of those roads, including sweeping. And so I'm not sure, because they're fulfilling the mandate for complete streets by making it accessible safer for bikes to use that section and pedestrians potentially too. And so I don't know why the city should have to then sweep it, because it's really underneath the complete street policy that they need to make the improvements anyway. So I'm not sure why we need to do the sweeping then.
That's a good question, Randy, and the one answer I can give you is that there is precedent in the fact that we do that function on Riverside Drive from Hill Street all the way back up to Broadway.
So thanks, Ken. I appreciate that. And so I know that we're supposed to do that for Riverside Drive, and there's actually huge issues with that sweeping because, you know, the salvage station dumps rocks on it constantly, and then there's the place that has all the landfill stuff that also dumps stuff on it constantly. And the city just has a tough time maintaining that as well. So I understand that there's precedent in doing that, but right now it's not working out very well, that precedent. So I don't have a lot of confidence that we'll keep Meadow clean. And there was, for a while, in one of the turns on Meadow there between that was improved, a ton of stuff that's fallen off a truck or something like that. And it stayed there for weeks and weeks. And I used the actual app to request it to be clean, and it just wasn't clean for such a long period of time. And so I guess I'm not confident that the city has the capacity to be able to sweep that on a regular basis to keep it safe.
And that's a very good point as well. And I won't pretend that we have the capacity. In this particular case, Public Works is willing to try to do it with their normal schedule with the other streets that they sweep. However, it may not be as often as we want. Also, if indeed the DOT were to do it, their normal street, well, first of all, in their world, they don't sweep streets that don't have curb and gutter. And so that this particular section does not have that. So, and one thing to consider is if indeed, at least the way it is right now, if indeed that we can't endorse this and it doesn't, and council ultimately disapproves it, does not go forward with it, then chances are the final markings that go down on that section will just be for a paved shoulder and not recognized as a bike lane. But people could still ride it if they wanted to.
Yeah, so I guess I have a concern too about then setting precedent again, because like I said, with Riverside, it's not really working out very well. And so it seems to me like it'd be better to have a shared agreement, and which I understand you're saying that there's no way Ncdot is going to do it anyway, because that's just not within the qualifications of what they have to sweep the road. But it seems like to me, if there was a way to say that both of us will sweep it, and then we could try and convince Ncdot to start a sweeping schedule on that by changing some of the rules or regulations about it, that'd be more in line with trying to keep the roadway clean and safe, rather than just trying to assume the responsibility for something that we probably can't do very well.
Right. I understand exactly what you're saying.
Well, my question was going to be exactly about those markings, because, you know, I noticed when they repaved that there was this nice kind of wide shoulder. And it's like, oh, it's a bike lane, but it's not a bike lane. You know, it would be nice. I definitely hear what you're saying, Randy, and I totally agree with, you know, needing to make sure that those are clean. I certainly would like to see that. Not that it makes a whole lot of difference to car drivers, whether it's labeled as a bike lane or not. I think maybe it does. Hopefully it does. Hopefully the majority it does. I would really love to see that labeled as a bike lane. So that's good that the DOT is willing to do that and had some forethought there. I guess, you know, to find the silver lining in this, at least they did have the forethought for that part of it. Obviously the maintenance is a bit of a tricky issue.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. I've used that section already a couple of times, and it's so much better than it was. I mean, I agree with Randy that there's still, you know, it's not ideal yet, but I think it is much safer. I feel much safer riding a bike on that section now than I ever have. And it does seem like maybe we're incrementally moving towards this. You know, it's like we can't get everything that we're asking for, but it's difficult if you have a narrow tire. It's difficult when you have large gravel and all kinds of other things. Like Randy was talking about the fall off truck, it becomes difficult to maneuver. So maybe we can, you know, in addition to this, also focus on trying to work with maintenance to ensure that there is that schedule that's a little bit more frequent, to keeping it clear, and particularly in the heavy use months, at least, you know, something like that we can have the discussion about. Any other comments or questions?
And Dennis, if I could, I would interject that I will be glad to put into the staff report that goes to council, assuming that you will say endorse it, but listing their concern about the street sweeping function, because I think it's safe to say there's at least one or two council members that are concerned about that very same thing. And so when I take it to council, I'll be glad to include that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's a great step. You know, I know that I think in general, to Randy's point, there's been a couple of meetings about other sections of road where this exact issue is coming up now, and it might be something that we're, you know, doing more of. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe this is going to be the process. But so it does make sense for us to see if we can try to get as best we can, you know, get a system in place to, you know, make them as safe as possible. Is there a motion? Can I get a motion on this item?
Can I ask him? Okay, sure. I'll motion to approve, just because I want to ask him one more question.
Sure. Second? Second on Randy's motion?
I just had a question.
Can you give me a second? We'll go to Randy's question, then your question.
I'll second.
Excellent. Okay, Randy.
So Ken, I'm wondering, would your recommendation be that we approve this now and then work with the city to establish a better schedule or policy or plan to keep the bicycle ways better maintained?
Yes, I'm definitely willing to have those discussions, Randy. And what I wanted to add as well is the primary reason that Public Works was agreeable to do this particular section is because, first of all, they have essentially the same policy that they typically do not sweep or vacuum shoulder section roads. And most of the street sweeping that the city does is really related to stormwater. So the stormwater budget takes care of that, and that's, you know, on the roads that have curb and gutter and drainage systems. But the main reason Public Works was okay with this one is they're already sweeping or having their schedule to sweep Lyman Street that has the separated, you know, bike path, and that way when they're doing that, they can come on down here. That's why they were doing that. So I just want to make that clear as well. But overall, I think at this stage of the game, the period of time we're in right now, it's safe to say that both the DOT and the city are struggling to do this function at all. Sorry,
Kenny?
that wasn't very good news. I apologize for that. But.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll support the motion, but I do wonder, Ken, in your experience, having a resolution like this, does it lead to more or less of the, hey, that's a DOT road, we're not going to touch it, and DOT saying, hey, we've got a resolution, the city's supposed to, take care of it. Do you anticipate any of?
Well, I think that the relationship that we have now with the DOT, with the leadership that's at the local division office, I think we have vastly improved our relationship compared to what it was prior to 2018. And we continue to improve that relationship. In fact, on a pretty much a regular basis, we meet monthly to discuss various issues related around primarily pedestrians and bicycles. So I think we have a solid relationship and all. So I think we're gaining ground and we're making improvements. And what we're seeing too is you know, the DOT has been very, well, as you all noticed in the previous discussion about the aesthetics committee, and the DOT has been great to work with there. And that not only includes the local office, but the division office. So I apologize for rambling a little bit, but I think that the short answer to your question is yes. I think that we're not going to throw each other under the bus and point fingers.
Excellent.
Does that help, Ken?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll do a quick roll call. Randy?
Aye.
Kenny?
Aye.
John? John, are you there? I lost you. Maggie?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Leanna?
Aye.
All right, I'm an aye as well. The motion carries. Ken, thank you so much. I think we got through your items. That's
Yes,
all right?
yes, you did. And I'm going to hang around through the item unfinished business about Merriman Avenue. So I'll be around for a while. I'll be here.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, the next item we're going to talk about is the consider proposal of the right-of-way closure at 907 Old Fairview Road and Wilmington Street. Jessica.
Thank you. So this should be a pretty straightforward right-of-way closure request that will be hopefully going to council here in the next month or so. This is, the applicant for this request is Beverly Cozort. She is the property owner of 907 Old Fairview Road, and she is working with, or I guess she's the primary applicant, but her neighbor behind her, and I'll show you guys a map, is wanting to subdivide her parcel. There's a unopened right-of-way between Miss Cozort's parcel and her neighbors. They want to close it so that there can be a subdivision, and I'll show you. It'll make more sense when I show you the picture. The proposed right-of-way closure is approximately 28 feet in length and about 12 feet wide. So here's the map. 907 Old Fairview is towards the top of the image, and the neighbor that Ms. Cozort has been working with lives at 24 Wilmington, and what they're proposing to do is close this half of this unopened right-of-way, the eastern half, so that 24 Wilmington can be divided in half, and the eastern half of 24 Wilmington, as well as the area within the right-of-way closure, would be combined into 907 Old Fairview Road. So it's kind of a multi-step process for the applicant, but the first step in the process for her is to seek this right-of-way closure. And as you can see from this map, there's no connectivity opportunity, really. There's no right-of-way, no utility conflicts, and there's no parcels that would be left without any access. This is a photo standing within the proposed right-of-way, looking towards the west, towards the 24 Wilmington side. And so essentially what you see here is just some bare land with a little bit of topography. The TRC, Technical Review Committee, which is the staff level internal committee, reviewed this on April 18th. And the recommendation from the committee was to approve the closure. The staff report from the TRC is attached to the agenda here today. And if you take a look at that, you can see that none of the departments saw any conflicts or any opportunities with regard to connectivity associated with this right-of-way closure. and therefore the recommendation was to approve it. So the proposed motion for you today is to recommend to City Council to set and hold a public hearing to permanently close a portion of unopened right-of-way east of Wilmington Road and south of 907 Old Fairview Road. And I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Joe?
Jessica, it appears, and I was actually just looking on the Buncombe County GIS, that right-of-way runs all the way from Wilmington to, I'm assuming that's, well, I don't see a road name listed on the road behind, but this is only closing the one half of the right-of-way? Is that correct? Or the unopened alley, is that correct?
So the image that I have here in the presentation doesn't show that it's connecting to a roadway, but in the Buncombe County imagery, it shows that this driveway that goes basically north-south from Old Fairview Road, that there is a right-of-way there, but I don't know that that's actually the case. And here, let me pull up an aerial as well. Well, let me pull up the Buncombe County site so we can see what you're talking about. It doesn't connect to anything other than another single-family home that also has access off of Wilmington as well.
Yeah, I saw that. I guess more what I'm thinking of is like even in the image you have up right now, you know, the yellow part is what you're talking about closing. What about the other part? Essentially page left, like right above where it says 24 Wilmington.
Right. So that would remain as is. The applicant didn't, well, we talked about whether or not the whole thing could be closed, and we kind of landed on this proposal because the owner at 24 Wilmington is looking to subdivide this parcel as a mechanism to get some needed income and or needed revenue, and so adding the right-of-way closure area onto their parcel would be a burden, albeit a slight one. So we felt like there wasn't any real benefit to closing that section. But we certainly could look at that, but then it would be a little bit more complicated. We'd have to go back and get we have affidavits from all those parcel owners, but we'd have to have the land within that area split and allocated to either side. I don't know if I answered that question very well.
No, you did. I mean, you answered the question about, the other part. So again, page left in that image right now is going to remain the unopened alley, which frankly, I think is great when this 907 Old Fairview Road becomes recombined, that presumably could then be used as access, although it looks like 24 Wilmington's driveway is in that right away. But anyway, you answered the question.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, this seems pretty straightforward. So it looks like all the departments are supporting it. Is there a motion on this item?
Dennis, I had one question.
Please, Kenny.
Yeah, to piggyback on Joe's comment, did they consider closing the whole right of way? Or, I mean, I know that they're trying to subdivide, but is there a reason to have that left side right of way? Are they trying to, is 907 gonna subdivide after 24 Wilmington subdivides? Or do we not? We don't know that. That's just.
I don't think that that's her plan. I think that she wants to, well, I honestly am not sure if she's going to then if she's going to subdivide 907 or not. If that were the case, I still think that the access that comes straight off of Old Fairview would be the primary access to that new lot. So I think that they would still be okay.
I mean, it seems like the purpose of these right-of-way is to eventually or potentially connect two streets with an alley or a street. And so if we're cutting it in half, kind of negates the benefit of the other half. If it's just a dead-end alleyway, that this, I can't see a use for a dead-end alley for the city. So it seems like, why not just close both right-of-ways? But I know that's not the application. So I was just wondering. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bill?
Yeah, I get, shouldn't we expect to see what the plan is if somebody expects to use property? Because that's what these questions are about, right? We're trying to understand what the point is. But you're asking us to essentially give people property, but we don't know what they're going to use it for. And maybe this is more of a zoning question than a MPTC question, but it just, to me, and I know also, Jessica, you guys worked on what is the right procedure for right-of-ways and so forth, so maybe we're following the new procedure, but I don't like voting on something if I don't know what it's for. So I'll just stop there and get your comments.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and yes, that has been the direction that we're going, is wanting to see the ultimate development plan. I would say that probably 90% of the right-of-way closures that I've seen come through in my time here, albeit that just a little over 3 years, have been associated with much bigger development projects. And in this case, it's more of a single-family home situation. So I don't have the plan that has been submitted, but what I've been told by the applicant is that all they're trying to do is help this neighbor by subdividing her lot and then combining that area of her lot into their own. And it's possible that she's then going to subdivide it again, but that hasn't been told to me. But we can certainly, what we could do if you guys feel more comfortable, because there's not necessarily a huge time crunch associated with this application, I can go back to her and ask if they have additional information that can be provided to show what the future plan is with this additional square footage, additional acreage.
Okay, because what forced my thinking was, in general, I'm assuming that it's subdivided to add density, which in general I'm for, because we need housing. But then again, alleys are pretty cool too. So I don't know if we have intentions to have neighborhoods with alleys. So that's what was driving my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be, right before I go to Leanna, it could be the situation where when you look at this right away, there is an existing, as Joe pointed out, there's an existing driveway that's in that right of way. And that might be why, because that's, it creates conflict and it might not be useful, whatever it might be. So there might be some other issues there. And maybe that's why they left it off the request. Leanna?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about our purpose and charge, and as it relates to transportation and pedestrian access and bicycles and greenways. And it seems to me that as in its current formation, it is not an asset, and to make this change would make no change to our committee's interests. And I think that, we all strive to want to know and understand more, but I don't know that that's in scope for us. I'm personally feel fine about it regardless. I don't know that it substantively changes probably how they've shared and used those, backyard properties so far. So what happens in the future, I can't predict. Yeah, that's my thought. I think it's a fine request. I think the Avery thing that we looked at previously made a lot more sense, just given access and intersections with high use roads. And I don't think this carries the same weight.
Kenny?
Yeah, I think Leanna kind of answered Bill's question about why are we looking at deciding on this, and I think it just, like Leanna said, it comes down to access, and just multimodal accessibility. And, if we relinquish this right of way, is it affecting the transportation system in such a way to be detrimental to bike, ped, or transit? And so our judgment should be, I think, not a land use decision or a subdivision question, but just like, would taking this right of way the little landscape? And if we don't think it will, then I think we can move it forward. But if we do, or if we have reservations about it in that context, then we can vote against it.
Joe?
Just real quick, I mean, as far as if they wanted to try to reuse it, there would need to be, any lot has to have road frontage on an actual street, and what appears to be something even on the GIS behind there is not an actual city street. So yeah, that would kind of negate being able to create a lot back there that essentially would be landlocked.
Yeah, that do some type of flag lot or something. Okay, any other comments or questions? I think we did Michael proud by having a nice long conversation about about a closure, request for closure. Without comment, can I get a motion on this item?
Yeah, this is Kenny. I'll move to approve the right-of-way relinquish request.
Thanks, Kenny. And a second?
This is Maggie. I'll second.
Thank you, Maggie. We'll do a roll call. Randy? I lost Randy.
Sorry, I think I'm abstaining just because I unfortunately I tried to review as many things as I could beforehand, and I'm just now logging on the computer, so I couldn't see all the documentation and stuff too. So I don't feel like I necessarily have enough information to make a vote, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Kenny?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maggie?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Leanna?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. All right. The next item is over here. The next item is the presentation regarding the Asheville Unpaved project. Lucy and Mike.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
Yeah, well.
Mike, I'm going to share the presentation.
Good. Hey, Lucy, I can share it. Alex updated the map.
Okay.
That we talked to. But you have the same link that I do, correct?
Go ahead and do it in case. Just do it.
Okay. If that's fine with
It's a
everyone.
very short part in this play here. So.
This is your local NPO in the city of Asheville collaborating quite literally from the ground up.
That's right. So a lot of you were on our field trip when we went to the French Broad River West Greenway, and I don't know if you remember us mentioning that that site where the Duke Energy property that we're building, the French Broad River West, is one of our pilot projects. But we're going to circle back around and start at the very beginning with my slides, and that is that before we started the GAP plan, I was receiving a lot of input from the communities citywide that people were wanting to see more and more greenways and more trails in Asheville. And so Asheville Unpaved was a seed of an idea where we were trying to get some type of facilities in the ground faster. And the comments that I was hearing from across the city were that they wanted more trails closer to where they lived, They wanted these trails to be able to recreate and be healthier and have a better mental wellness, an increased sense of community. They wanted their neighborhoods connected to their bus stops, to where they were going, to the larger greenways. And we all know that natural surface trails are a lot cheaper to build than paved trails. But we had lots of questions on exactly how to implement this. So we started looking into how to do this and what community members and groups would be interested in working with the city on it. So next slide. So we started meeting with groups, and we had probably a couple dozen groups, including Asheville on Bikes, but smaller running groups, hiking groups, biking groups, people who are interested in adaptive sports. So those are the types of recreations that are built for people with disabilities, and other nonprofits in the area, and began sitting around a round table and talking about what this could be and how we can make this happen. And one of the things we knew for sure was that we wanted these trails to be built to last, and that would help us with erosion control on our properties, as well as better access than just the willy-nilly trails that we see on some of the larger properties that the city owns, but isn't actively managing at this time. So we had long conversations about design guidelines and typologies of these kind of trails. And then how would we implement them? We needed a formal process that would create a partnership that the city could feel good about backing, and how the funds could be raised for these kind of things, and how we could make ideas of projects official, as in an annual work plan. Next slide. So this is what led to the vision of what Asheville Unpaved could be. And it would be an alliance of partners that were all interested in seeing this vision come to life. And our long-term goals were to have the initiative be a community-driven collaboration of partners, that the trails would serve as well-utilized transportation and recreation facilities, and that projects were equitable and met the greatest need of people throughout the city. Next. And we were making great strides. The top right corner shows just probably the majority of the groups, but we were still having groups contact us after this slide was made that showed that we have lots of nonprofits, some for-profit businesses, like a lot of brewing companies in town, and groups that aren't official nonprofits, but people who love to run on trails, for example, that wanted to be part of this organization. And we were laying out all of the different types of responsibilities that would need to be met in order for this plan to become a reality. And we broke them down into these 5 or 6 different groups and started working on them, and have had great turnout, but mostly we had 4 groups that really stood up and wanted to take place, wanted to really push the pilot projects. And Asheville on Bikes and Mike Sewell are one of those groups. And this is the last of my slides. So we will start with Asheville on Bikes story of how Asheville Unpaved came about.
Great, thank you, Lucy. So yeah, to summarize, the city had a plan or a concept and shared that plan and concept with a variety of stakeholders. And out of all of those stakeholders, Pisgah Area Sorba, Asheville on Bikes, and Connect Buncombe showed up and said, hey, this is a really exciting project. concept, how can we help? So we leveraged our resources, the nonprofit partners, and we hired Peter Mills and coordinated with the city to look at a variety of different city-owned properties. There are some private properties to see what would be feasible. So this is a community-supported initiative led by Asheville on Bikes, Pisgah Area Sorba, and Connect Bunko. And so again, what does the Asheville Unpaved offer? It offers several things. One of them is equitable access. Trails will be developed in Asheville's natural lands and parks, campuses, and urban areas. And I'm just going to interject AOB's sort of personal story with this. We've been running an after-school bicycle program at Asheville Middle School in partnership with the Asheville City Schools Foundation for 10 years. We say the tagline of the project, or the bike club, is "We play in traffic." And our program gets students after school out riding their city. And one of the things that we experienced and we learned right away is that while we live in the middle of mountain biking mecca, the students that we serve have very little access to the natural surface trails, to mountain biking. Getting students to Bent Creek and back is Herculean. Even getting them over to Richmond Hill, where the bike park that Sorba built, takes coordination between all the different organizations, getting on a bus, getting off a bus, getting the bikes on. And so this equitable access is really about the opportunity to get more people into the natural world, on trails, without the burden of having to leave the city. So it's really important to our work in the community and the students that we serve. The other value proposition, of course, you get more trails for fewer dollars, and the sustainability of building the trails, hiring a professional trail builder and to build the trails so that they last a lifetime. And I wanted to show everyone that the nonprofits are not just saying, "Hey, City of Asheville, do this, do this, do this." So far, collectively, we've invested $26,210 into this project. So we're showing up with some of the resources that are required to move this forward. And yes, we are going to need more resources. So what have we accomplished so far? So we started coordinating, like Lucy had mentioned, back in 2019. And then in 2020 through 2001, we contracted with Peter Mills of Elevated Trail Design to consult and provide initial designs for the Asheville Phase 1 trails. And then through the winter and spring of 22, we're right now establishing a formal memorandum of agreement between the nonprofit partners. That means that AOB, Pisgah Area Sorba, and Connect Bunkum are coming up with a formal binding agreement about what each one of these partners will do to move this forward. We're sort of moving from working in good faith, handshake agreement, into, okay, we're going to be the nonprofits to kind of carry this phase 1 ball. Certainly, other nonprofits and other organizations are welcome to participate, but we see ourselves as sort of the managing agents of this project. And throughout the spring, we are moving into neighborhood associations, commissions, other interested parties to present, which is why we're talking to you today. And then in the fall of 2022, moving into the future, the City of Asheville and Partners will host a bunch of formal, more public engagement input process, where this presentation is about information and keeping everyone up to date and letting them know what we have and haven't done. What we did is we worked to create this logo for Asheville Unpaved. This is the branding that we came up with. And one of the things that Asheville is very unique and very special to Asheville, and I really don't feel like we do enough to leverage what this asset is, we call it internally the Narnia threshold. And that means that if you think about like the Hominy Creek Greenway or being up on Bowcatcher, you can really be in a natural setting where it is all about rock and tree and stream, and then very quickly make a right-hand turn or cruise down a hill, and all of a sudden you're in the built environment where it's, you know, beautiful architecture or a muraled wall, asphalt and concrete. And you can do that several times all over the city. And we wanted a logo, a brand that demonstrated, had both the natural world and also the built environment all in one. And so we have the phase 1 trails that we're going to be presenting right now. And just to give you the sort of the geographics of where we are proposing these systems go. You've got the East End neighborhood, that's Mountainside Park, South French Broad, that's adjacent to the Asheville Middle School where our youth cycling program is, the YWCA, and French Broad West in the River Arts District and West Asheville. And then we also have 2 alignments in East Asheville, Azalea Park and River Ridge area. And so this, what you're looking at right now, and take a minute to take it in because it's a lot, but this map is the connector map, and it plots out the initial phase 1 alignments. I think it's really important to dial into Mountainside, the Cote Branch, and French Broad River West. As we build, if we were to build these 3 alignments, we're going to have overnight connectivity where, yes, any one of these alignments could serve as a sort of micro pocket park. But Asheville on Bikes Asheville on Paved is fully realized when the user gets the opportunity to connect on Mountainside Park, move through the urban district, through the South Slope, into the River Art or into the French Broad neighborhood, access Bacote Branch, and then drop down into the River Arts District and access the French Broad River West. This connection right here could be done literally overnight through a series of slow streets and existing active transportation facilities. With that said, there are more greenways in the works, like the Nasty Branch Greenway 2, that serve to improve the connectivity between these 3 parks. Over here in East Asheville, you've got the River Ridge alignment and the Azalea Park alignment. And what we agreed upon as a group is that we needed to show a bullion cube, sort of the concept, overnight, immediately, as soon as we could, with the French Broad, the Bacote Branch, and the Mountainside Parks. We want people to see that connectivity, that mix of the natural world and the urban environment. But we also know that it's really important to throw a softball out into the future and invest in East Asheville, because we have a huge opportunity and a problem with the Swannanoa Greenway moving forward. And so we wanted to put something out here that would eventually connect to the much needed Swannanoa Greenway that we're all waiting around for. So I'll just dive in really quickly to each particular alignment. This is the Bacote Branch. So to orient you, here is Asheville Middle School. The YWCA is right here, and this is the football field and the track for the school. Red denotes bicycling specific, and green denotes multi-use path. So think about that as walking, running, bird watching, bench sitting, dog walking, as well as bicycle use as well. And if you look right here, you can see a purple squiggle, and that denotes a potential neighborhood connectivity where we could build in from this road. What is this? Is this Lyman Street? Yeah, right there. So that's the Bacote Branch. 4,300 feet of multi-use trails, 1,700 feet of bike only. Construction costs ranging between $60,000 and $75,000, and the bridges and the map package as well. And then you have French Broad River West. The yellow line right here, this is the existing William Dyke Greenway with the protected bicycle lane and the Greenway. Across the river, I'm moving around too much, excuse me, apologize. Across the river, this is the Riverlink Bridge, and this yellow dotted line is what is currently under construction, the French Broad River West. The shaded green area is all city property. And this is commonly known as the Duke Energy property. And so we have an alignment that would come off of the currently under construction French Broad River West and connect down to the dog park. And then again, the red line denotes bicycle specific. 6,400 feet of multi-use trail, 4,900 feet of bicycle specific, and the cost of this range between $90,000 and $110,000 for trail construction. Mountainside Park. So to get everyone oriented, here you have McCormick Field, Memorial Stadium, and up at the top, the big climb is Alexander, and this is windswept. What is proposed here is, again, a series of trails. Here's the future White Fawn Park, and this is McCulley Street, where you would have a connection. And again, green, multi-use, red, mountain bike or cycling specific. And then you can see a series of the green squiggles that would be potential neighborhood connections. 19,000 feet of trail with a mix of bike systems as well. Our builder did not break that out. I did ask him to break that out for us, the multi-use versus the bicycling specific. And trail construction between $190,000 and $204,000, and there would be about 10 bridges, so that would also add additional cost to this project as well. The Mountainside Park would be the most expensive. And then moving into East Asheville, the yellow right here denotes the future Swannanoa Greenway. You have the Nature Center, WNC Nature Center, and there would be alignment that would come off of the Greenway, a multi-use path that would connect over Gaseous Creek Road and then carry on to Highland Brewing. And then over here you see the Thomas Wolfe cabin, and you'd have another section off of Azalea Road that would be an out and back loop, a multi-use out and back loop. 7,700 feet, construction $75,000 to $90,000. Lastly, to get everyone oriented, here's Swannanoa River Road. As you guessed it, this is the future Swannanoa Greenway. This is the traffic circle going into the Walmart area. I believe this is like Cheddar's Restaurant. This is the one alignment that would be built on private property and would require the city and the property owners to get an easement to build these trails. But this would come off of the future Swannanoa Greenway, and it would connect into River Ridge Road, and then there would be a multi-use loop out and back here. 6,300 feet, the cost ranging between $68,000 and $80,000. And then the timeline, I've sort of gone over that, and we're moving into fall 2022 and looking at project implementation. I will say right now, there are $0 other than what the nonprofits have invested in this project for implementation today. We are aggressively looking for funding opportunities through grants to get this project moving. And that is what I have to share. Are there any questions?
I would like to just add on our timeline right now, we're in the very beginning stages of public engagement. So we're meeting with neighborhood groups that are directly impacted by some of these projects to let them know and to hear their concerns, because we might be able to address their concerns with the types of designs that we have. And we also expect to hear things like impacts to parking in their neighborhood and things like that. So we're considering good answers for those kind of concerns. And after we are done with those initial outreach meetings, then we will have a public engagement session with the whole community, hopefully some in-person meetings for a change. That will be awesome. But if we have to, we can also be remote, but we will probably include either way. We will have an online survey so that we'll hear from the entire community of Asheville how they feel about this project.
Thanks, guys. That's incredible. It's really fantastic. It's really exciting. Comments and questions? Well, I can start. You know, I feel like every time I learn a little bit more about this project, the more excited I get. What I like about it, you know, Lucy, you brought up the access point and some of the challenges that we might have with some parking. But when we have these multiple access points, you really, you know, you're distributing those cars through a lot of different areas. And that's really nice, because I think we do need to be considerate. These are quiet areas. These are underutilized or just not utilized at all dormant land that we have within the city. And so I think those neighbors get used to that being very quiet there. And so as we introduce people and uses, I think that's better for the whole community, but we also need to understand that it's a transition from them to be more comfortable in seeing some activity in those spaces. So our ability to, you know, disperse those cars and those uses, I think is great. And then I love the idea, particularly the idea what Mike talked about with around the middle school and giving those folks, the folks that are taking their classes now, those students some access to that mountain, you know, getting them, you know, to get that bog to bite them as early as possible, I think is really exciting. So there's so much to love about this project. That's amazing how quickly it's coming together. At least for me, it's, you know, I feel like I've seen it 3 times now in the last couple of months, and it's incredible. So very exciting. Joe?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's certainly great. And I love the idea that, you know, we do have, we are kind of in mountain bike mecca, but yet there's no place, like you have to get in a car. You know, personally, that's one of the reasons why I started riding my bike from town out to Bent Creek to go riding, was just, I got tired of driving there and being part of the parking problem. Obviously, you know, I'm sure Lucy and Mike, you both know some of the concerns with some of the, you know, neighborhoods that are already experiencing development pressure. And I'm just kind of curious, like, I wonder what they're going to think of this, you know, improving the neighborhood, so to speak, and potential, you know, increased development pressure and gentrification from that. I was also curious too, just as far as like the actual implementation of this. You know, I know Sorba does a ton of work in the National Forest as far as trail maintenance and things like that with volunteer labor. I'm assuming that's something you all have talked with them about, as opposed to just having it, you know, Trail Dynamics or someone come in and build it. Can certainly understand if there's like city concerns as far as liability, having volunteers working out there. I mean, I know, again, Sorba runs into that in the forest too, but yeah, wonderful to see all this and excited to have it come together.
Thanks, Joe. Do you want me to address this, Mike?
Can I take a crack at issues of gentrification?
Sure, and I'll address Pisgah Sorba.
Okay, great. So yes, impacts to neighborhoods, and that's a very sensitive, you know, the stakes are high with something like this. And I think that, like, we can look at what Memorial Field and the soccer field and the track as a really good example of something going off the rails. You know, success leaves clues, and so does failure. So I think moving in mindful. And one of the things that what we're committed to is going to communities with these alignments, sharing the vision, and then listening. And it is entirely possible that there's that we will be this will be welcomed in and will be championed. And then there's also the possibility that we'll be seen as a threat. But we need to work that, and there's an area in the middle. And so, like, disengaging from that conversation doesn't get us anywhere, and we have to engage it. Secondarily, when we think about access to the natural world in Richmond Hill and Bent Creek, there is a lot of privilege that goes on with that access. And I know that firsthand from trying to get our students to go ride Richmond Hill from Asheville Middle School. What it takes to do that currently we can provide our students out of all the hours that we're serving them, maybe 20 to 30 minutes of riding the trail system, riding in the natural world. Getting to French Hominy Creek and back again to Asheville Middle, not possible. So there is an uncomfortable conversation to have about gentrification and the impacts to neighborhoods, but there's also stakes in not addressing it, which is we just continue to perpetuate the elitism of access to the natural world. And I'm looking forward to engaging and having that uncomfortable conversation and learning things and owning the assumptions that I'm making today. So that's where I am.
Yeah, I bring it up only because I know it is a concern, and you know, you're right with the Memorial Stadium. I mean, right now, planning and zoning, we're looking at a project over on Pat Avenue that has gotten a lot of pushback from neighbors not wanting increased development in a place that is ripe for it. And so, you know, these are the kind of conversations that I just know they're out there. They're fomenting, and I think it's great that you're, you know, willing and ready to kind of tackle it head on. I mean, that's the only way to do it, really.
Yeah, and the great thing is, I mean, just for this particular conversation, the great thing is the project has no money. There's no funding. So we can really, what we are here when we look at the Memorial Stadium, but I heard over and over and over again was, we want our community to be a part of the conversation from the ground up. We're the conversation from the ground up, because other than the $26,000 from the NPOs, there's not a dollar more.
Yeah. And to your second question, Joe, we've had lengthy conversations with Pisgah Sorba and Elevated Trails and the rest of our group about how to get these built. And it's actually more cost effective and efficient to hire a professional trail builder to design and build them in one swoop. And then, but we will use Pisgah Sorba as our project manager through the process. So I feel really confident that this is a winning setup here to get the trails built correctly.
Yeah. And I think part of the question in my head, and I didn't ask it too, was about obviously the ongoing upkeep and maintenance, and whether the ability to have even minor assistance from volunteers, even volunteers in the community, to help, be part of the building and know about what to do as far as maintenance and things. And that way the communities then have the ownership of it too, which obviously gets into the first discussion we were just having. So.
Great idea.
Randy?
So I know you said, like, this, again, there's not money right now to do the building and stuff too. In the timeline, it shows fall for being when you're hoping to start building. If funding isn't obtained by that time, does this just continue on an ongoing basis? There's no, like, it doesn't get done by this time, then it's off the table, we need to start over again. But it's just going to be like, as we'll continue to raise money as we go along, and then if it doesn't raise enough by the fall, we push it to spring, or what's the situation there? Because we don't want to lose the momentum we're building now, but at the same time we don't want to lose it through not getting the funding. We don't want to lose it through waiting until we get the funding, right?
Right. No, that's exactly right. And we're looking for the funding, but we're also a pretty nimble alliance. So that means we might get, let's say it costs $1 million, but don't write that down. That's kind of our really rough numbers, but we know with inflation and with labor, what it could be. And so I think it's really important to what you're kind of getting at, strike while the iron is hot, move this forward. So ideally we build it, we get the funding all together and we build it all out at once. Because if we don't create a connectivity, what essentially we're doing is just building another pocket park, right? We're building another Hominy Creek sort of facility. And the real thrust of this is connecting the natural world through the built environment into the natural world. So I think it's really important to connect at a very minimum, 2 alignments that connect through the city to highlight the concept of what it is. And I think that, in one scenario, we trim the project and we build upon one success after another to build it out over time. Ideally, and what we're positioning ourselves to do right now is to secure the funds to build out all the alignments that were presented to you today in phase 1. But I think we do have to recognize that we might have to pivot from that.
Kenny?
Yeah, Asheville has a lot of development pressures, so I think that might be a good framing device for when people push back on it, is to say, hey, this is land that, like you said, is prime for development, but instead you're going to be conserving it. Trail design, I think that's really important. And also, I live right by the UNCA woods, and it's amazing to be able to use as recreation. I take my dog walking, but also it's a cut through for me. So it's a transportation corridor that I use. Instead of walking on, Broadway or Merriman, I can cut through a really nice woods. So there's a conservation piece there too. But I love that you've accommodated very specifically the mountaineers and the hikers as different facilities. And I think that's really, really key to this, because, people in this community love to bike, but they also love to hike. So I'm glad that you're addressing those as like separate user types and figuring out the best trail alignments for each of those, as well as the purple neighborhood connectors. Those are awesome too. I pointed that out last time I met with you and looked at the maps, but the more purple connectors you have on there, the happier I'll be.
Great. No, thank you for that input. Yeah, and we don't want it to be all just agro bikers or all just agro runners. Sometimes it's very important to take the dog for a walk and sit on a bench and contemplate the bird on a branch, and that's what this is there for too.
And we didn't mention that UNCA and AB Tech have been involved in our discussions. UNCA has taken a very interested role in it, and they realize that they have a lot of trails on their north side of campus too that are kind of rogue trails, but they would like to see something come of it as maybe a second phase, the second round of projects.
Outstanding. Any other comments or questions?
Just a round of applause. I mean, somebody mentioned ambitious, and this is truly ambitious, but it's kind of a game changer for the city, and I'm really impressed with all the work that's gone into it and how quickly it's just kind of happened. It's like somebody had a vision and like just started rolling down the hill, and now it's a reality, which is very exciting. So thank you, Mike and Lucy, and all the work you've done so far.
Yeah. Lucy, did you need anything formal from us at this time?
Jessica, do we need, I'm not bringing this to council yet, so I don't think we need anything at this time, but we'll keep you informed of when we are going to council.
You're part of our early engagement where we're informing, so the feedback is very important. If you have other follow-up questions, if you know of an audience, a group, an agency, whomever, who would be interested in learning more about this, would be, what do I want to say? criticisms, critiques, cash in large sums, we'd be more than happy to get in front of them and give them a presentation. This is the beginning of the information sharing out to our community. So if there's anyone that or any agency that we could get in front of, please let me or Lucy know. And I also, as an advocate, I want to give a real shout out to Lucy and Jessica, because what's happening with these projects, and there's College and Patton, is what you're seeing is the nonprofit advocacy organizations and the city de-siloing, unlocking our horns from one another, getting in a boat and rowing in the exact same direction. So I'm excited about this project, but I'm also mostly excited about the institutional partnerships that I think can really be a good example for how we move forward and build the city that we all have to build, because the demands are pretty intense around here. So I want to thank the opportunity to work with Lucy and Jessica on this and other projects as well. That partnership is key.
You're here. Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Lucy. All right. Our next item is we're going to be moving to unfinished business. First item is the Merriman 4-3 conversion proposal. Hello, Jessica.
Hello. So just to give you guys an update and share some information with you guys about where we're headed, we've had a meeting a couple weeks back with DOT, and I think overall the momentum is in a very positive direction. They are ready to commit to moving forward with the road diet on Merriman from W.T. Weaver to the north. They have presented to the city some draft language for an agreement that would be associated with this. And we have submitted to them some suggested revisions to the agreement language, specifically as it relates to what they're calling the removal clause and the maintenance clause, if you will. And so what's attached to your agenda is what was proposed in its original form by the DOT. What I have showing on the screen right now is a track changes version of what we suggested to them as our desired changes. And we are expecting to hear from them on Friday their response to our suggested changes. And really, the removal clause is not necessarily something that we even wanted to see, but I think we're at this point where I don't think we have an option to not have a removal clause. But what we're trying to do is have a removal clause. And when I say removal clause, I mean removal of the project or reversal of the project. But what we're trying to do is create some reasonable criteria that would come into play for potential consideration of reversing the project if certain things were to happen. And the first big and probably the biggest, most important change that we have suggested is they wanted to have kind of an evaluation period of 12 months. And we are asking for that evaluation period. So, comparison of before and after road diet implementation, we've requested 36 months. So that's the big thing that we've asked for in our response. And many of the other strike-throughs are really just changing that 12 months to 36 months, or just removing all of the references to 12 months. And then the other I think, big change that we've requested is within the second bullet point related to fatalities and serious injuries for bicycles and pedestrians, to be a total of 3 instead of a total of 2. And that would be, again, within the first 36 months. And then the rest of it is kind of, I would say, less critical, but just clarifying some things. Statistically significant increases in 50% or 85% speeds. Clarifying that any increased issues on the interstates, that they be attributed to the project itself and not some other cause. And this final one in the bullet, we changed from spillback to be looked at after the first 90 days rather than 45 days to allow travel patterns to adjust. And then again, we added a little bit of language that suggests that we would like to have discussions about removal if we get to that point, and collaborative discussions with the city and the DOT after this 3-year period if it turns out that the DOT is wanting to reverse the project. Before I go on to the maintenance piece, are there any questions or concerns here that you guys would like to discuss?
Randy, is your question about this removal clause section?
Yeah. So thanks, Jessica, for your work on pushing back a little bit against this, because it seems like they're kind of making it difficult to try and implement it in lots of different ways. And so I have concerns about the maintenance one too. But I think that even a lot of the numbers they put forth in this part was really arbitrary. So I haven't had a chance to see all the revisions that you put in too. But certainly the 1 year is way too short. And I think, if I know correctly, if I've been informed correctly, that Ncdot's typical evaluation on project changes like this is 5 years. And if that's true, or whatever it is, it seems like this should be no different than that. We shouldn't have, 1 year cycle certainly is way too short. And even 36 months is less than the 2 year cycle. So that seems way too less too. And then even like in the 3 deaths versus 2 deaths, again, that's a tough situation, because people will be using it more, for example, hopefully by biking and pedestrians. And so it's likely that, there might be more instances on a, pure number basis of conflict. But in terms of the percentage of usage between now and then, so let's say one person gets killed now on it and hardly anybody's using it. And so then let's say the increase is 500-fold using it, and somebody, 1 or 2 people get killed or whatever, which is horrible in any situation that anybody would ever get killed on it too. But that percentage then is so much lower that it doesn't justify the removal of a facility, because it's being heavily used. And then, as a result of the heavy use of any facility, you're going to have more encounters that might be adverse. And so I think that the numbers they're throwing out it certainly shouldn't trigger a removal clause. At worst case scenario, it should trigger an evaluation of it, where we can look more deeply into all the issues to see if the installation of the facility is the cause of those things or not. So I think we should strike the removal part completely and just say this was initiate after, again, I think it should be 5 years, but whatever it is, or ongoing evaluation throughout that time period. It should initiate a careful review by the city and then Ncdot, with hopefully representation by MMCC, to why it might be happening, and to see if it's because of the facility being installed, not just a removal clause. So I think that they're even approaching it from a perspective that's not appropriate.
Bill, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. So I wanted to, the topic is the congestion metrics. I assume that last bullet is the congestion metric. I don't understand what that is. And I'm just wondering, do you have any other congestion metrics that would be more understandable to the layman. I know, and the reason I say this is that all the pushback I got from the neighbors had to do with what is this going to do about our potential congestion. And I know in the presentation there was data about travel time, and for example, that would be an understandable metric if travel time changes from 20 minutes to 30 minutes or something like that. But I do think it's the neighbors are going to want to see congestion metrics, and I don't see any that I understand on this list. So I wanted to bring your attention to that.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I see the disconnect between the data that was presented and how these criteria don't necessarily reflect that. Trying to put this into layman's terms, what they're saying is that a car spill back through multiple intersections means that the queues are so long that they go all the way back through the next signalized intersection. So you have these, you're sitting through multiple cycle links to get through one intersection, and the queues are so far back that they're spilling into the next signal and beyond the next signal. Mm-hmm. And that is a measure of congestion, but it doesn't necessarily directly correlate to travel time delay like you're talking about. So I think that is something worth, and Ken, I think Ken still here, perhaps that's something that we can talk to them about on Friday, is if there's a way to have the congestion criteria maybe more closely aligned with what was presented at the workshop, or we can maybe explain this one a little bit more, because it is confusing. One thing I do appreciate about their proposal for the spillback is that it seems the way that I am reading it is that they're only concerned outside of peak periods, although I think we should probably further define what that even means. But it seems like they're recognizing that there's a potential for queues to spill back to adjacent intersections during peak periods, and that is an okay condition for them. But if it's outside of peak periods, meaning my interpretation of what they're saying is that meaning like for pretty much all parts of the day, except for maybe in the middle of the night, if they're spilled back, then that's an unacceptable condition to them. So I think we need a lot more detail here, because it's not clear even to the people that kind of know the lingo. It could be further defined.
Yeah, it helps us defend the project, I think, because I vigorously want to defend the project, but I've got a lot of pushback from neighbors that say this is going to kill me, and so I'd like to be able to say, well, you're being accounted for, so that would help.
And just to add to what you were saying and what Bill was asking, the way I interpret that to mean is that I think that everybody concedes that there could definitely be congestion and travel delays during the peak times. And the primary peak times for Merriman Avenue would be 7 to 9 and 4 to 6, because it is definitely a commuter route. But I think what this is trying to tackle is if there was some of this spillback, and you described the queuing exactly right. If that's occurring during the off peaks, that's what they're trying to do. So we would think that the vast majority of the day, the traffic should run very well. But in case it starts having these excessive queues, that's where they're concerned. One of the ways, of course, to solve that is to make sure that the signal system stays, I'll say, in sync, and that the majority of the green time then is given to Merriman Avenue. So in the morning, that green time may be coming southbound. In the afternoon, that green time may be going northbound. But what that does, that means that DOT would have to commit to checking those timings on a very regular basis. That's the only way it really works.
Thanks, Ken.
You're welcome.
And Jessica or Ken, could you address Randy's point about the 3-year versus 5-year? Is that incongruent with a project like this? So, are we kind of getting set up here? What's your sense for that situation?
Well, I think, and I think what Randy, if I say it wrong, please correct me. But I think what Randy was referring to is that many times when you're looking at a corridor or something, you're looking at traffic crash patterns anywhere from a 3 to a 5-year period. And for a long time, and it's been a long time since I've looked at it, but for a long time, the DOT standard, the way they publish, we'll say crash data, was always in a 3-year period. But I think in the last few years, there's been a lot more credence in looking at a 5-year period. And I think that's what Randy was referring to. So if indeed that's the typical time frame that you're looking or trying to observe crash patterns, then why would not this criteria kind of follow that same criteria? And Randy's shaking his head yes, so I think I hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, exactly, because they're establishing, again, criteria that's not in line with their normal practices, which seems inappropriate for this situation. And then again, the second part of that too is that I don't think it should trigger a removal clause. It should trigger a discussion clause, because when you make arbitrary decisions based upon data that may not be completely accurate, then that's not appropriate either. And real quick too, about the timing of the lights too, we're paying for the timing of the lights to be changed, correct? But yet we don't have control over the timing of the lights. Isn't that right? Which seems odd.
Well, we're not really paying for the timing of the lights, but the way the signals are situated on the mast arms or even on the span wire today, that's for a 4-lane configuration. So what we're paying for is for those lights to be shifted to line up with the new lanes once it goes to 3. We're really not, our cost really has nothing to do with the actual timing of the signals. Now the DOT will be taking care of the loops that are in the pavement, because they have to do that on any resurfacing project anyway, because they mill so much of it off of the asphalt. Now obviously that takes care of that gets rid of the loops whether you want to or not, and then they put down the new ones.
It's fun. Do we also have detectors then for bikes in the bike lanes, or is it just for the cars? I know sometimes the bike loop detectors don't work, so they use optical detectors or bike activated, signalization too.
Yeah, and I can't answer that question definitively today. I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, that's a good ask. Joe?
So I was going to kind of tee off of what Randy was saying originally about, the crashes. And Jessica, I appreciate you putting these revisions up. I mean, because when I first looked at this earlier today, I was like, oh my gosh. And it looks like you and Ken and everybody are hitting everything that I was like, this seems kind of crazy. But, I feel like there have been, and maybe I'm wrong, in the last 3 to 4 years, we've already had 2 fatalities on Merriman Avenue. And, likewise, so I'm changing that to 3. I think, again, don't want any fatalities, but I think even 3 in a 3-year period maybe isn't enough. I hate to say it again. How do we figure out, is there a way to say, okay, the bicycle pedestrian use on Merriman right now is X, and we've had 2 fatalities in that amount of years, so that's a whatever percentage. If the bicycle pedestrian use increases 200% and we have 2 extra fatalities in the same time period, again, can we figure out a way to make a mathematical calculation of that so that it's really not, in other words, the fatalities, the crashes, all of that isn't more, there's just more because there's more use. And so I think for bullet point 2 and 3 are very much tied together in that way that, they need to be looking at it from the amount of use that road is getting and the difference that it will get in bicycle and pedestrian use as opposed to just a flat number, over time. So that's, yeah. And then also too, why don't we look at the reduction in automobile crashes? Like if they're using, if you have 2 deaths in a 12-month period, that means we need to take it away. Well, how many crashes of cars do we have right now? That means we need to take 4 lanes away. I mean, you can use what's happening there now as a justification to do something different. So.
Kenny? Or Jessica, do you want to respond? I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with you, and I'm not sure if this was discussed with DOT at the meeting a couple weeks back, but I mean, I have concerns about measuring bike ped fatalities in whole numbers rather than in rates. I think the challenge is that we don't have good existing data for rates of use. So I think that's where they're coming from with using these whole numbers. But I don't know, Ken, was that something that you guys discussed, was trying to establish an increased rate of crashes versus just pure whole numbers?
No, I can't recall that we got into the details in that regard. I would say that there's a couple of things going on here, and I'm just trying to be totally transparent with you. So, and I think that some of you probably realize this, but really, if when we say the DOT, it is the DOT. However, we've got the local DOT office, and then we've got Raleigh. And in this particular case, I'm talking about the traffic engineering branch, their congestion management unit. They've been a big player in this, and it's only fair that the division engineer here of the local office, he has to depend on a lot of their expertise. And if he's going to advocate for a project and even side with the city as an example, he needs to have the support of those folks. And so part of this is coming more from that traffic engineering branch and their concerns about this overall thing. And this idea, this concept was really suggested to try to ease that concern and all. So I still think that we've got wiggle room as far as the actual statistics. So that's what we're hoping that we're going to hear back on Friday. So I hope I didn't muddy the water with that, but I'm just trying to lay the foundation of this.
Yes, understood. Kenny, I think I cut you off. Did you have a comment?
Well, I just want to remind people that it says the project could be considered for removal or reversal if one or more of these conditions are met. So it's not saying, if one of these conditions is met, automatically we're going back. It's saying, if one of these is met, then DOT will consider removal. So it's not as strict as it could be, which I appreciate. And also, I'd like to lobby for a removal clause. So if they do the diet and then they reverse it back to the current configuration, can we have a clause in there that has conditions where they bring it back to a road diet if crashes go up after they remove the road diet configuration?
Ready?
Yeah, so in reading the Complete Streets policy for the North Carolina, it says there needs to be a Complete Streets review team, and it consists of the Complete Streets program administrator, state traffic engineer or designee, state roadway engineer or designee, integrated mobility division director or designee, and planning division planning engineer coordinator. So I don't think those people are all involved in this, but it seems like to me that they're not following their own policy in terms of this, because the numbers they're putting forth and stuff, it seems unlikely that they would come up with that if that review team was assembled to review this. So I guess I'd ask, them, because like you said, again, I've been in some of those meetings, and the people from Raleigh have been very heavy-handed and inappropriate in the way that they discuss some of these issues, to the point that they even said that maybe they should be removed from the discussion because they're being offensive with the way they were addressing the issues. And I have never seen that team, the review team, is part of this process, but yet their own Complete Streets policy says that they should be. And so I guess my question is, since we're not dealing with Ncdot directly anymore, is that team in place for this, and what do they say about this?
Randy, what's the policy date that you're referring to, if you don't mind?
Sorry, 2019, which I think is the most current one.
Right. And in 2022, they came up with, I'll call it, for the lack of a better word, a how-to guide for that policy you're referring to.
Yes, and I've reviewed that as well too, and it doesn't not say anything about not having that team as well. So the implementation guide is actually what I want to talk about in terms of the maintenance, because there's also the maintenance exception policy from 2003, which seems to be the most recent one, and then neither of those documents say anything about the city having to assume cleaning responsibilities or maintenance responsibilities for any facility. Because I think that's a sticking point too, in terms of like the city council approval of this, which is going to be huge. So I hate to jump ahead to the maintenance part, but my understanding is that the city council is going to be presented with having to purchase another street sweeper to do the street sweeping, which would be a huge budgetary implication, and that may then dissuade some of the city council people for voting for this. But yet their own Complete Streets policy and the implementation guide and the exceptions guide say nothing at all about the city or local municipalities assuming any responsibility for cleaning or maintenance of any of the facilities established because of the Complete Streets policy.
Right, and that's one of the clarification points that I'm trying to seek to get an answer to that, Randy.
Thank you. I appreciate it, because that seems like a huge sticking point in terms of the city council's endorsing this project or not.
Randy, that's a great point, because it's only a 5-foot bike lane. If you got 2 feet of debris, it's not a really good bike lane anymore.
And they're also, Ncdot will continue to support and maintain both the sections north and south of this section as well. So they're going to be out there doing this work, just not in the zone.
And Dennis, I think if just to add what you said, yes, this has nothing to do with the fact that they're going to give up ownership of a section of Merriman Avenue. It will still be US 25. It will still be Merriman Avenue. It will still be a state maintained facility. That is definitely correct.
Jessica, do you want to go? I'm sorry, Joe, please. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. I forgot to raise my hand. I just wanted to real quick. Ken and Jessica, I really appreciate you guys working on this. I mean, I feel like we've been talking about this for a while and definitely have had some, pretty in-depth discussions, but I do feel like it's moving forward. And I guess I just want to say I have some encouragement that this will happen. And I very much appreciate all of y'all's hard work. I know it's taken a lot to get here.
Thanks, Joe.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're in a totally different place than we were a year ago. A year ago, they were wanting us to own the road, take US 25 and put it on Charlotte Street. There is a whole lot that we've overcome since then. And that's not to say that these criteria are perfect or that we want to assume responsibility of cleaning, but at the same time, I don't know if these remaining items are the thing to kill the deal.
Our job is to nitpick, so forgive us.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And we're trying to do that too. And Randy, I think your points about the Complete Streets policy are very important. And you know, I think in general, some of these measures are not detailed enough for my liking, not measurable enough. And I'd like for us to work with them, you know, to try to refine these and get them to be more detailed. And I think utilizing some of the people on that team might be a good means of doing that. And, you know, the way I'm looking at this document is it's just a Word document. It's not the actual agreement. So I do think there is wiggle room, as Ken said, to refine these things and get them into an agreement that is more descriptive.
And Jessica, to that point, I know that we kind of jumped ahead into the maintenance section. Is there anything else you wanted to cover off on there before we kind of continue the conversation?
No, I don't think so. I think the rest of it is what we've discussed previously. So yeah, the major changes were up here in the top with the bullet points.
Okay. Randy?
Sorry, I don't mean to belabor this, but I think that we need to keep in mind, because my understanding is that, I mean, if the city council doesn't support this, then that's a huge issue. And my understanding is that the city council is going to be asked to budget for a new street sweeper just to do this little section of Merriman. And it could be a deal breaker, because they're going to be like, should we spend, I don't know, what do they cost, you know, $250,000 over on a street sweeper just for this little bit? And so if that loses council support for this issue, that could be a deal killer, right? I mean, that's my understanding of it. So we can't risk that loss of support from council over them requiring us to sweep this road, I think, right? Because it would wipe out everything we've been doing for this whole period of time, because they've got fiscal constraints. And if it's not appropriate for us to sweep the road and they're requiring us to do so, and that requires a new sweeper, which is a huge budgetary outlay, and that kills the deal, then that's a deal breaker. So we really can't allow that to be included. Unless I'm getting it totally wrong, but that's just my understanding of it.
Ken?
Yes, Randy, you do make a good point. But I want to just, let's just set that aside for a second. So the other thing, you know, to do this, you know, we're responsible to have an upfront cost of roughly $275,000. And then if it didn't work, then we'd have we'd have to pay that again, as well as pay for the pavement markings. But let's just concentrate on that first. Right now, we don't even have an identified source for the $275,000. And we obviously are going to have something in our staff report, because it's not good for staff to take a proposal to city council and then say, oh, but by the way, it's not funded. And then they try to work it out at the meeting. So you know, we still got to tackle that issue as well. And just so you all know too, is that we are in a very tight timeline now, because in order to make the May 10th meeting, technically our staff reports should already be going through the final review stage. So we've got a placeholder. We haven't, you know, lost it, but we don't. The staff reports have to be totally turned in to the clerk by Monday at 5 o'clock.
We talk about
So it's, you know, it's just very, very tight. And the reason for that, because originally, and I apologize if Jessica has shared with this information in the past, but I think it's important just to say it again. You know, the DOT wanted to do this resurfacing project actually last year, but they worked with us to delay it a year and so forth. So now, if they're going to realistically get the project done before the end of the calendar year and before the paving season ends, and if we move forward with this, they've obviously got to get a lot of signal work done behind the scenes to have the designs in place for the contract. So that's why this timeline is the way it is right now. Just to let you know. But we definitely appreciate your input. That's why we wanted to have this meeting, and we will carry forward your concerns and see what we can do about getting them addressed.
Ken, would it be helpful to have some kind of motion from Multimodal in terms of that funding piece of it, just to help move things along?
Could you explain a little bit more what you mean by that?
Well, there's the anticipated cost of $275,000 on the city of Asheville shoulders. Is that something that we need to help push up a hill?
No. I was just trying to share that with you. That's something that we're working behind the scenes, and we'll have to just get identified, prior to that report going out. But no, I think what we need from you would just be the fact that you all support the project. And we'll have to hammer out the details on some of those.
So we have submitted, we have had a motion, I think 2 meetings ago, to support this project. Is there something else that we could do other than providing this feedback that you feel would be helpful to your crew to get things moving forward?
I think what we wanted to make sure was, and yes, I know earlier on, it may have been, well, you meet once a month, so it might have just been 2 meetings ago. I know you indicated support in the past. I think we were just trying to make sure that what's on the table today, and the fact that we have the willingness of the DOT to move forward with it, because you didn't have that the last time. We just want to make sure you saw it again. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, from my sense in the group, I don't think any of our support has changed. Randy, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So, again, same thing for me, working on this for a year, so it's passionate about this. But so our recommendation before, and I think it still is maintained, is not even just for the corridor they're suggesting, or not the corridor, but the section of the corridor they're suggesting. But our support is for the entire section that's being repaved, receive treatment. And we understand that they may not be realistic at this point in time, but it's important, I think, for Ncdot to understand that we're not satisfied with just a partial completion of this network, that we really need to have a complete network. And that would include a treatment all the way down to I-40 or 140, or whatever. So I'm sorry, I'm in New Mexico, so I'm in a different mindset right now. But and that wouldn't necessarily include from Chestnut to I-40 to I-1. I'm sorry, 240, 140. Being bike lanes all the way to the highway, but that might just be some other treatment from Chestnut to the highway, but it would still be a treatment that would transition then from bike lanes that would extend to Chestnut. So our support, I think, again, it may not be realistic in terms of getting that put in place right now, but Ncdot needs to understand that they're not fulfilling all our wishes and desires by, even if they just do the part that they're considering doing now, that our ambition is to have a completed bicycle network in the city, which would make it realistic then for people to choose bicycling as a transportation alternative to be able to move around and through the city. And that only happens if we have a connected bike network. And so this is a piece of it, but it's not the end all. And they should understand our ambition to revolutionize transportation in Asheville to make it so there's active transportation options for everybody. And this is a piece of that.
Yeah, my sense is that the group is still, just to give you the feedback you're looking for, Ken, the group is still very much in support of the plan. It seems like you're going through, you and Jessica are going through with a fine-tooth comb on the wording, and that's certainly, I think important that we understand how we're going to be measured and how we define success. So to me, it seems like there's still, unless I hear somebody else say it, there's still, almost, if not complete, unanimous support for this project. Any other comments or questions? All right, thanks, folks.
Thank you, Dennis. And if it's okay with the rest of you, I'm going to jump off now.
Great, thank you so much, Ken. We have dipped over time here, so if without objection, unless Jessica, you think there's anything pressing, I'd like to push our other unfinished items and then our updates to the next meeting. Does that make sense for everyone?
Yes, that makes sense. I don't have any updates.
Okay, great. Well, without the objection, we will adjourn the meeting and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.